In this video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to explain cost of goods sold to you, why it's so important, explain to you how we derive numbers on our spreadsheets for cost of goods sold. Before I start, I'd just like to maybe just review what cost of goods sold is. People say, can you define that for me? And I say, yep, the way that I define it is that it is a cost that is triggered by a sale. So let's say you have a clothing store and you are selling coats, and somebody comes in and buys a coat for $1,000 and they walk out of the store. That has triggered a cost of goods sold because no longer do you have that coat available for sale. Okay, and the actual sale itself triggers the cost of goods sold. In a restaurant, when you order a hamburger, and they put together the bun and the burger and the garnish and the fries and the ketchup and all those things, that is the cost of goods sold that is triggered by that sale. So let's just go back and we'll have a look at your cost of goods sold spreadsheet. Right now it is blank. And over the next little while, what we're going to do is we're going to populate it with numbers first that you had put together with Colin. And secondly, we'll actually deal with cost of goods sold on a percentage basis and then in a dollar basis. And you're going to learn very quickly that since business is all about money, that this really is a very, very important part of the business system. You have to understand how you make money, and you make money by generating sales, but also by controlling your costs. And you decide what your cost of goods sold is going to be, and we'll discuss that in a bit. So let's go back and look at that revenue sheet. Okay, if we can, let's go over there. And what we're going to do is we're going to take all the numbers that you put together on your revenue sheet. We're going to take them here, and we're going to copy those, and we're going to move them across to the cost of goods sold spreadsheet. And you'll see right off the bat that not all of them are going to move. Okay, we're going to have to move some of them and then copy. And so we'll do that first with total revenue. So we go and we click on the cell for total revenue. And we say, okay, I want that to be the same as from my revenue sheet, what my total revenue was there. And I push enter. And so therefore you can see that you can take the number, copy it from the revenue sheet, and then we can drag that across. And you can hit Control or Command R, depending on which computer system you happen to be using. And we now have our revenue, which is moved across. We have got our sales mix by percentage. We know that 12% of our sales are going to be beverages and 33% are going to be dry goods. So now we want those dollar numbers to move across as well. So we're going to go, that is equal to, back to my revenue sheet. I click on that number there, push enter. I've now got my beverage revenue. I can copy that formula down and hit Command or Control down. And I can also take this across and hit Command or Control R. So now we've got the same information that we dealt with on the first page. The revenue page, we now have on the cost of goods sold page. So let's now move on and start actually dealing with cost of goods sold, because that's the reason why we're here today. Okay, so we're going to come down here and we're going to deal first, right down here, cost of goods sold. And it can also be called COGS. That sometimes is a little bit easier for people. And we go and we put down as a percent, okay? We come here and we're going to copy all of these different categories that we have sales in. Copy those, and we're going to move those to here. Okay, so we now have all our categories, which is really, really cool. Now, we have to decide, you have to decide what is your cost of goods sold for all these various categories. In this case, we're talking about a grocery store, but it could be a clothing store, it could be a restaurant, it could be anything. you know. But what you need to know is that if I'm bringing in my beverages and my beverages cost me $1, okay, let's say a beverage costs me $1, how much am I going to sell that for? And once I know that, I'll be able to derive my cost of goods sold. Okay? And the best way for me to do this is probably to sort of take a bit of a stop here and explain the difference between cost of goods sold and margin. And I can tell you right now that 95% of the business owners out there today will not be able to explain what I'm going to explain to you in the next couple of minutes. And when you realize how important this is, you're going to say, why wouldn't they understand it? Well, it's because they were never taught. They never learned how to operate a business properly. Okay, so we're looking at beverages. Let's just say that we bring in a can of Coke. It costs 50 cents. Well, how much are you going to sell it for? Well, if you sell it for $1, your cost is going to be 50% because I paid 50 cents for it. I divide that by what I sold it for, 50 cents divided by $1 in terms of a percent. So a half of 100% is 50%. So my cost on that beverage is 50%. My margin on that is the selling price, $1, minus the cost price, 50 cents, which is then 50 cents. So you now understand cost, which is a percentage of revenue, and you understand margin, which is the money that you actually earn. Now, the question which everyone should probably ask is, what's more important, cost or margin? Well, they're both important, but the most important one is margin, because that's money. That is the money that you actually take away with you at the end of the day. So now we're going to go in and we are going to put down our percentages for all these various categories. And this is after you have done your homework. You've gone out, you have sourced a supplier, you know who you're going to be buying your beverages from. You understand that you're going to up the price by double. So you're going to run a 50% cost on that. Other items, you're going to run a higher cost. Other items, you're going to run a lower cost. So we're just going to play a game here, and we're going to assume certain cost percentages for each of these categories. So beverages, we have agreed that it's going to be 0.5. It's 50%. Okay? We're then going to come along and we're going to look at dry goods and say, hey, we can mark up our dry goods a little bit more, so therefore we're going to mark it up by 3 times. So we're going to call that 33% cost. Our produce, very difficult because it's fresh. We also have to build in a waste factor there. So therefore, we're going to run that at, let's say, 60%. Okay? We're going to come along to cleaners. Cleaners are going to be 40%. Okay? Paper goods, same as cleaners, is going to be 40%. We're marking them up 2.5 times. Personal care, we can't mark those up as much because we have to watch our prices, 50%. And just general merchandise, we're going to make it at 33%. Okay, so these are not figures that you get from anywhere else. These are figures that you've actually figured out. You've actually sat down with a pen and paper and figured out, okay, I'm bringing in my hair shampoo, my Head and Shoulders at $2. I'm going to sell it at $6. Okay, that is a corporate decision. So now we're going to highlight all these like that. We're going to change those into a percent. Okay. And then we're going to copy them across. So you now have your cost of goods sold percentages. All right. From that, we can now figure out our cost of goods sold in dollars. Watch this. We're going to copy that down here. Very cool. We're going to take this one that currently says percentage, and we're going to back that out, and we're going to change that to $1. And now we're going to do a formula. And we're going to say that this, to figure out what it cost us in beverages, we say that's going to be equal to our revenue that we generated, the $12,500, times multiplied by multiplied by the percentage that we have associated with beverages. And we push enter. And as you can see, 50% of 12,005 is 6,296. Perfect. We're going to take that and we're going to copy that down. Oops, didn't mean to do that. That was a slight error. I'm going to copy that down. Okay. And then I'm also going to copy it to the right, all the way to the right. Okay. And in this case, I want a total cost of goods sold. So I'm going to actually put in a little formula here that allows me to grab all of those costs. But just to make your life easy right now, I'm going to show you how I do it. It's going to be equal to this one. Okay. And we're going to add that. And then we're going to add that. And then we're going to add that. And we're going to add that. And that gives us our total. You will have on your computer a Sigma, which will probably allow you to do that with just one stroke of a mouse. But we can copy that down. And we now have not only our individual cost of goods sold for each of the categories, you also have your total cost of goods sold for each of those categories for the 4 quarters. So let's go in and put in here our total for our cost of goods sold. We're going to do that. And once again, we're going to add these up. And we've got that available right here. And we've got it. And this is where I was talking about before, where we have the theta sign, sigma sign, enter. So now we have our total cost of goods sold for not only each of the categories, but also for each of the quarters and also for the first year. And that's extremely important. These numbers are extremely important to you. And what we want to now see is we had various cost of goods sold depending on what category it was. We also had different sales mix. We can now discover what our overall cost of goods sold is. So we're going to do that now. Put down as a percent. And we're going to take this and we're going to do a little formula and we're going to take our overall cost of goods sold for a quarter and we are going to divide that. We're now going to divide that by our sales. And here was 100% of our sales was right here. Enter. Okay. And we're going to see that as a percent. That's what we want to see it as. And so we can see that in this particular business model, okay, our overall cost of goods sold is going to be approximately 44%. And the only thing we don't have on this particular one right now is our overall revenue. And I can take that from here, which I can get here. Now, change this little guy here. And we're going to divide that by backspace, 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 go back up here and click on that guy and go enter. So obviously your cost of goods sold is 44%. So what does that actually mean to you? That means of every dollar that you sell, okay, 44 cents of that is going to go to purchasing the product that allows you to sell it. And in some cases, it can be a simple one-for-one. If I am buying a pair of pants and I sell those pants, it's a one-for-one. If it was a restaurant, it gets a little funkier because I've got burgers and buns and fries and ketchup and vinegar and all kinds of other things that come into play. But as I develop my recipes, I then understand that when I sell a burger for $12, that the overall cost of that is $3. It cost me $3 when I add up the burgers, the buns, and everything else. Okay? So understanding this is step number 2. We got revenue, which you already have on your first spreadsheet. We are now dealing with cost of goods sold, and you now understand that you are in the process now of having that revenue being eroded, and it's eroded by cost of goods sold. So that's it.